Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3840 BN. Today's date is February 15th, 2026, and the title of the episode is Hillary Clinton Obama Panic. Article 2, Vesting Clause gives Trump the power. Think national security. Hey, you know what's interesting? We've all seen the headlines about those miracle weight loss shots, but the 2026 data is officially in, and it's a wake-up call. A major analysis revealed that once people stop the injections, they regain an average of 60% of their weight within a year. Even worse, most of the gain is pure fat, but the muscle they lost stays gone, leaving them with a crashed metabolism and a body that's functionally older than when they started. That's why I'm obsessed with today's sponsor, GLP-1 Elevate. Instead of using needles to override my system, it uses clinically studied plant-based ingredients like metabolate to help my body naturally boost its own hunger control signals. I get the same fullness and fewer cravings, but without the scary side effects or the metabolic rebound. It supports my goals while protecting my muscles so I can actually keep the results for good. To celebrate Valentine's Day, get 50% off GLP-1 Elevate at trimwithx22.com. Every order includes a complete support bundle with a free VIP coaching for life, a 60-day money-back guarantee, and free express shipping on subscriptions. Head over to trimwithx22.com now to claim your 50% discount before it expires, or just click the link in the description. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you could see that the Ds, the deep state players, they're panicking right now. Remember, their agenda was to infiltrate this country, which they did to a certain point, and they brought in as many illegals as possible to gain seats in D.C., to cheat in the election, to install more of their people. And what they started to realize was the people of this country, especially the Ds, allegedly their constituents, which they're not the constituents, but they do need them to vote for the people that they want to install, because, again, you just can't do everything with cheating, because can be completely noticeable that you're cheating, because if you don't have all, some of the people's votes and everything's all made up, the numbers wouldn't look right. So for their cheating system to work, you need a mix of both. And what they did during 2020, they went way above what they normally did, which actually throws all the numbers off. And this is why everyone is saying something doesn't make sense here. And Trump and the Patriots, they did this on purpose because they wanted them to take it to extreme, because this way it's a lot easier to prove. But think about why Hillary Clinton is out there and Obama and the rest are out there all panicking right now, saying that maybe we went a little too far with bringing in the illegals to this country and opening the borders the way they did, because they're looking at their internal poll numbers. Remember, their internal poll numbers, those are the poll numbers to tell them what to do next. And since we're coming up to the midterms, they realize, listen, we're losing our complete base here. If we lose these people, how are we going to use our cheating system? It won't work. We're going to be stuck in this. So we're going to have to reverse course right now, and we're going to have to tell people we went a little too far to try to get the moderate Democrats back. See, they're losing the moderate Democrats right now because of what has been happening. And every step of the way, they're realizing this. And this is why they're panicking right now. And this is why they're doing an about face. It's not because, hey, by the way, we're wrong and we admit it now. No. Think about what happened in Virginia. The Virginia governor, she told everyone what they wanted to hear. And then as soon as she became governor, what'd she do? The opposite. This is what they do every single time. They deceive, they lie, and they tell you things you want to hear to try to get their base back on board, to get you to vote for them. See, they basically look and listen to you, and they're hoping that you will believe what they're saying, because they're actually going to your morality. They want you to use your common sense and agree with them. Oh, look, we were wrong. Yeah, we shouldn't have done this. So still vote for us. And people say, yeah, you know what? They admit it now. Okay. They see where this went wrong. So they're still good people. This is what they try to do. And I don't think this time around it's going to work the way they think it's going to work. I think this time around it's basically going to backfire, because the people have been through this multiple times. They've been through it with the different governors, mayors, and you name it. They've been through it with Biden. Remember, he said he was going to unite the people. Did the country feel united? No. Remember, he said he was going to make the economy great. Fuel prices went way up, inflation went way up, and they lied to the people. So once again, you can see that the people aren't going to go along with this. But this is why this is why they're panicking. This is why the deep state players are panicking right now, because they realize what's going on. And you have to remember that Trump and his team, because he's placed these individuals in trusted positions, they know what they have to do. They're going to be monitoring the elections. They're set up to go after the criminals. And you have to remember, everything that we're experiencing right now, it's not for Trump, it's not for Cash, it's not for Pam Bondi, it's for the people of this country. They already know the crimes. They already know who's guilty, but they have to educate the people, because the people must understand. You must fight for this country, because without fighting for the country, without seeing the system, without seeing what they've done here, you'll never be able to keep the country. That's why we're going through this. It's almost like something that works out. If you take a magical pill and it gives you a six-pack and muscles and you lose weight, have you put in the work to do it? Once you stop the pill, once you stop the drug, what happens? All that weight comes back on. You failed. You'll never know how to lose the weight. You'll never know how to eat correctly. All you'll know is the easy pill. And once the pill stops working, or you stop the pill because of medical complications, that's it. And that's the same thing with the country. You must see the system. You must understand what they did here so you can fight against this in the future. You can tell your children and their children's children, never allow this to happen again. We experienced it once. We can never allow this again. What do you think our founding fathers did? They told their children. Their children told their next generation of children, and so on and so forth. This is what needs to be done to keep the country. And you have to remember, Trump and team, they control everything. They control all the information. Trump has seen the classified information. Cash knows the classified information. Pam Bondi, Kristi Noem, Tulsi Gabbard, they know all of it. And you have to remember, they're the controllers of information. Every time the fake news or the D's try to put something out, it's debunked in a matter of seconds. Ask yourself a simple question. Why? Because they're not in control of the narrative. And Trump, he has all the power to control the deep state right now. Because you have to remember, what has the deep state done? Did they try to remove an elected president from 2016 to 2020? Did they try to overthrow the United States government back then with fake information, made up information? Absolutely. Did they actually overthrow the United States government and actually released a deadly virus? We're going to use those terms because that's what they call it. A deadly virus on this country. To do what? To steal the election, to overthrow the United States government. Did the same people then try to indict Trump, which they did, when he decided to run for re-election? Did they try to assassinate him? Yes, they did. Did they try to stop him every single step of the way with the judiciary? Yes, they have. So is this, ask yourself a simple question, is this a national security threat? If they cheat and they can overthrow the United States government, is this a national security threat? If they can make an attempt on the president's life or anyone's life, is this a national security threat? If they're blackmailed via Epstein, is this a national security threat? The answer to all of that is absolutely yes. So does Trump have the power to do everything in his power to protect the people of this country because it's a national security threat? Absolutely. What gives him this power? Article 2, vesting clause, gives Trump power. It gives him the power to protect this country from the treasonous criminals. So when he says that everyone will have to use voter ID during the election, even if we don't pass the SAVE Act, even if we do pass the SAVE Act and the voting ID part of it doesn't come into play until 2027, can he do this? Normally within an executive order? No, not really. But if it's a national security threat against this country, yes. Now ask yourself a simple question. Why is Trump revealing the cheating system in Fulton County, Georgia? Why is Trump going to reveal the cheating in Arizona? Is he going to prove to the people of this country that it's a national security threat? Absolutely. Ask yourself a simple question. Why is Trump revealing what Epstein has done? Who was involved with Epstein? Look at the people that are resigning. If they have nothing to hide, why would they resign? And the point of the matter is not their microcrime. And yes, it's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing that they trafficked young girls. It's a horrible thing that they had sex with young girls or maybe even boys. It's a horrible thing that they might have tortured these people. But when you step back and you take a look from a 40,000 foot view, you have to ask yourself a simple question. Why was this done? Was it to maintain control over all of these people that had influence and power? Yes, it was. That's the real part of the system. Not the, oh, look, they had a girl and they raped her. It's a terrible thing. No one should go through this. They did this because these people are evil. These people are criminals. Yes, absolutely. They're pedos. But they did this to control these people and have them do what they need them to do. In D.C., at the local level, CEOs, dignitaries, Hollywood, you name it. Look at the people that are escaping from this country. When you look at this, it goes far beyond this. So when you look at it, you see Trump is exposing that. He's also exposing the money laundering, how they fund their system. So you have the funding of the system, the control of the system with Epstein, and you have the rigged election system where they can control who's in power, who gets into power on the local level, in the House, in the Senate, you name it. You're starting to see the entire system. Is this, ask yourself a simple question, is this a national security threat to this country? Yes, it is. So when Trump says everyone will be required to use voter ID, will he show everyone that, yes, what they have done here is a national security threat? Absolutely. That is what he's talking about. I mean, it does look like we're getting very close to passing the SAVE Act. But again, a lot of things in the SAVE Act do not happen until 2027. And I think this is why he's using Fulton County, Arizona, probably other states, to put a lot of pressure on the rhinos, a lot of pressure on the Ds. We got one D in the House to vote for the SAVE Act. Might get a couple more, maybe, in the Senate. We'll see how this goes. But you could see already that we're getting enough people in the Senate, and I think J.D. Vance will probably be the tiebreaker. But again, you could see that everything the deep state players have done, it is a national security threat to this nation, which means Trump has full authority, full power to do what is necessary to protect this country. Now, does he want the deep state players, the Ds, all these people to do the right thing? Absolutely. Will he give them the chance to do the right thing? Absolutely. But he knows deep down, just like I think we all do, they will not. Criminals will never do the right thing. That's why we call them criminals. So right there, you can see where all this is headed. And yes, the fake news is involved in all of this. They're the ones who protected the installed people. They're the ones who shaped the narrative. They're the ones who actually release the information that the deep state players want released to convince you of something that's really not happening. And every day, what do? They release the information to try to shape the narrative, to make you think, yes, this is the right thing. Look what ABC News just put out. The Trump administration's deportation to third countries last year are estimated to have cost taxpayers upward of $40 million, with some third country migrants costing more than $1 million each, according to a Democratic congressional report. Now, once again, do you really think this report is telling the true story? No, absolutely not. But just let's use the numbers they gave. Rob Schmidt says ABC couldn't care less about the $3 trillion yearly budget deficit, but shits itself over $40 million to deport illegals. Why? Because they want open borders. FYI, $40 million is the cost of running the U.S. government for exactly 3 minutes. Think about that for a second. Think about the billions and billions of dollars that were sent to Ukraine. Think about the billions and billions of dollars that were laundered in Minnesota, in New York, in Colorado, in California. Don't you think that's a much more important story than this one? Absolutely. But you can see once again, that's not their directive. Their directive is to shape the narrative into to making you think that Trump is wasting money. Go back in time when Trump was building the wall. They made you think this is going to be so much money, but they just sent billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine. They hid all the money laundering. They hid the 14 computers that were just creating currency out of thin air, adding all of that to the debt. They left that part out. All the ridiculous programs, flying transgender monkeys, snails that might, shift into different sexes. They were spending all that money, millions and millions or billions of dollars and all that, but let's not bring that up. So right there, that tells you everything you need to know. And think about it. They brought in all these illegals into this country. The majority of them are criminals. They decided we're not going to report on the criminals and all the crimes that they're committing in the cities to make it seem like there's nothing happening in the cities. Trump brought the National Guard into these cities to prove everyone that they're lying to you. Actually, out in D.C., it was proven that the police commissioner was fudging the numbers. They're doing it in every single one of these cities because they had to keep the illusion alive. Remember, they create the illusion and they convince you the illusion is reality. It isn't. And remember that poor woman that was stabbed to death on the train, Irina. Well, think about this. Who released the criminal onto the streets? Trump, he put this out and said the following. Repeat violent offender DeCarlos Brown Jr. was put on the streets by radical Roy Cooper and his soft on crime agenda. He then went on to brutally murder Irina Zarutsika aboard the Charlotte Light Rail. We have learned that this monster appears as part of a secret settlement made between radical Roy and far-left activists to release 3,500 inmates from prison. Roy Cooper put violent criminals back on the streets. He has disgraced North Carolina and disqualified himself from public office. Law and order is coming back. Michael Whatley will stand with me to restore safety, crush these insane left-wing policies, and put North Carolina first. Michael Whatley has my complete and total endorsement. He will never let you down. Then he put this out about Roy Cooper. Governor Roy Cooper freed the killer, DeCarlos Brown Jr., of the beautiful Irina Zarutsika. Because he is a weak and ineffective person, he slashed her neck from behind while on the train. That is why crime has been so bad and violent in North Carolina during leftist Cooper's time in office and beyond. Michael Whatley, on the other hand, is strong on crime. Great leader. He was the chairman of the party and ultimately the head of the Republican National Committee, along with Lara Trump, during all three of my election wins in the great state of North Carolina. If you remember, it was President Donald J. Trump that saved you from the worst water storm in history. The Democrats did nothing. The work began on January 20th, the day I assumed office, and we did a great and very effective job. They were letting your state rot until I came in. And nobody helped me more to get it back in order than Michael Whatley and Republican leadership. We don't need another radical left senator who wants to destroy our military. Take away Fort Bragg and your guns at the same time. Vote for Michael Whatley. He will never let you down. Letting you know it's time to make a huge change. And I do believe the people of North Carolina at this point in time, this is exactly what they're going to do. Because, again, everyone that Trump endorses, they seem to almost always win. And now, with people using common sense, we're going to see that more and more people are going to be siding with Trump. And the deep state players are going to be in a lot of trouble. Because now people are thinking logically. People are using common sense, especially with the Epstein information that's coming out, because everything's pointing to the Democrats. And think about it, all the people that support certain candidates, their names are even in there. So yes, CEOs, Hollywood, royal dignitaries across the globe, politicians, you name it, they're in there. And it looks like Pam Bondi announced the DOJ has released all Epstein files, list of high-profile names appearing in the documents. Jay put this out and said, there is everything in these files. Congressional statements, DOJ records, FBI briefings, text messages, news articles. If someone emailed Epstein, I love Elvis Presley music, the name appears in the list. Thomas Massey, who is on the list as well, has created a total shitstorm. He demanded there be no redactions. He got no redactions. Now, innocent people such as himself are on this list and will be accused of being a pedophile. Congrats, Thomas Massie. You played yourself. And the department released materials tied to the following 9 categories: Jeffrey Epstein, all investigation, prosecutions, and custodial matters; Ghislaine Maxwell, flight logs and travel records, aircraft manifests, itineraries, custom records, vessels, vehicles used by Epstein or related entities; individuals named in connection with Epstein's criminal activities; civil settlements, immunity plea deals, or other type of investigations; entities, corporate, nonprofit, academic, governmental, tied to Epstein's trafficking or financial networks; immunity deals, non-prosecution agreements, plea bargains, sealed agreements involved Epstein or associates; internal DOJ communications regarding decisions to charge or decline prosecution; communication regarding destruction, deletion, or concealment of evidence; documentation of Epstein's detention and death, including incident reports, witness interviews, autopsy files. No records were withheld or redacted on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity, including to any government official, public figure, or foreign dignitary. Isn't this what they wanted? Think about that. Now, she released it all, and now everyone has the names. But again, they just appear in there no matter what you did or what you said. And now people have to sift through it and say, well, is this person a pedo or isn't this? So should we just assume that Thomas Massie is now a pedophile? Think about this for a second, because you have to remember, Representative Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie were pushing this. Representative Ro Khanna put this out and said, the problem is DOJ illegally redacted names without explanation and then refused to give context for the names once they redacted. This is why Thomas Massie and I have been pushing for the full release of the files with context and protecting the survivors. Todd Blanche says, and respond to this, the problem is that you didn't come to us, but immediately ran to X and the House floor and made false accusations about 4 men while we were checking the facts. Remember, it's political grandstanding. So what did they do? Both of them, Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna. The problem, you never know the full story until after. After it's too late. And here's the brutal truth. You can't protect yourself after. You have to be ready now. All this uncertainty, the chaos, the warning signs, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just noise. Maybe it's just the beginning of something bigger. Nobody knows for sure, but waiting to find out, that's how people get hurt. Physical gold and silver aren't just investments. They're preparation. They're the foundation of real protection. My friends at Noble Gold Investments have been helping Americans protect themselves for nearly a decade. No pressure, no games, just proven insight when it matters most. Look, you're either prepared or you're not. Which one will you be when everything changes overnight? Visit X22Gold.com to receive your free wealth protection kit. That is X22Gold.com. And remember, the prepared don't panic, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. They never mentioned the name Catherine Rumler, despite her name appearing thousands of times in emails within the Epstein files. Yet both Massie and Khanna went out of their way to publicly claim they forced the DOJ to release the names of 4 men they accused of being sex traffickers and pedophiles. Massie was very proud of his efforts to discover the names and force the DOJ to unredact them. As Massie proclaimed continuously, if Trump and the DOJ did not publicly unredact the names, it would be proof that Trump and the DOJ were protecting pedophiles and sex traffickers. After holding their joint press conference, Massie and Khanna then went to the House of Representatives to proclaim Salvatore Narara, Zurab Mikeldes, Leonid Leonov, and Nicola Caputo were sexual deviants, pedophiles, and much worse. They were horrible men who had abused underage girls. Except there was a problem. A big problem. All of these individuals had absolutely nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein or anything even remotely associated with Jeffrey Epstein. The names of these individuals were in the Epstein files because they were random pictures of men, random passport pictures used in a photo lineup during questioning of one of Epstein's victims. So once again, we all need to be very, very careful in what we do here. Just because you're in the Epstein files, it doesn't mean you were on Epstein Island, you're guilty of a crime. Remember, crimes have to be proven. So once again, you could see that these individuals never knew anything about the DOJ or the FBI or Jeffrey Epstein or anything else, even remotely in that orbit. And they were labeled as sex criminals and horrific people, which probably ruined their lives. Actually, they should be able to sue at this point because this is defamation, isn't it? Without any proof. And this is why the DOJ was taking their time. But again, all these people that just wanted this out there for political grandstanding or whatever other reason, they're hurting innocent people. And once again, you could see the truth right now. But you do have to step back a little bit, and you have to understand, and we said this before, is that yes, Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell was Epstein's handler, but these are not the puppet masters. These are the people who are doing dirty work. Just like if we said, hey, the Somalis in Minnesota, they are the puppet masters. Are they? Are they the ones who formulated the plan to launder the money? Are they the ones who thought up this grand plan? Or are they the front men and women? That's exactly what Ghislaine and Epstein are. Lisa May put this out and said, 6-year delta for drop 4565. Possible Epstein was a puppet, not the main persons of interest. Financed by who or what foreign entity? Primary, gather blackmail, unelected politicians, dignitaries, royalty, Hollywood influencers, Wall Street and other financial top-level players, other high-profile industry-specific people. Feed in addiction, controllable. Maxwell family background, Robert Maxwell history, intel agency wealth, class 1 through 99. Sometimes it's the people in the background that are of greater significance. Absolutely. And we're starting to see that this is absolutely true. I think Hans pretty much explains it. The endless outrage theater over this or that Epstein email is so tiresome, now having reaching full-blown 9/11 absurdity. Meanwhile, the real takeaway is hiding in plain sight. The sheer extent of how cozy, interconnected, and self-dealing elite circles actually are. Just look at the names on the list below, which is only a tiny sample of Epstein's circle. Not everything is about the abuse. That was horrific, but the victims have already gone through at least 3 major compensation processes, which may explain why they aren't speaking out much. The point is that while some of these elites may have been involved in the abuse, most were just there for influence, capital, networking, etc. We already knew this ecosystem existed, but the Epstein files offer a rare, first-hand look at just how deeply entangled normalized elite networks really are, and how they control people, and how they use this type of the piece of the system to control all these people. Then you have the laundering and the kickbacks to fund the system and actually also pay people to keep their mouths shut. So you can start to see how this is all connected now. And I think if you take a 40,000-foot view, I think the more important story, and I'm not saying the other story is not important, but who is running all of this? Who's behind the scenes? Who's controlling the system? And think about this. I think we know who they are. And when you start to look around the world and you look at the Carnegies, the Rothschilds, and you start to look at Soros, and these are the people that are controlling all of this. And they've been controlling this for a very long time. Of course, I might have left out some names, but I do believe that these are the major players most likely controlling a lot of this because their names pop up quite a bit. They have a lot of NGOs. They're funding a lot of information. So when you start to put the pieces together, you start to realize that, yeah, this is really connected. And they used all this to create their new world government. Think about that for a second. When they say there could be a new world government, it's their system of complete and utter control. And this is what they've been doing. This is what they've been doing for a very long time. And I remember going back in time I think it was during COVID, when he said, listen, the trafficking of children, the trafficking of women, this goes back to ancient times. But now they've made it a lot easier with the internet. And it made it a lot easier for them to do this. And yes, I think he was leading up to all of this. And we could see the system, how it really operates, the different functions of the different pieces of their system. And it's becoming clearer and clearer and clearer as time goes on. And you can see this is why they continually call those people that are trying to stop their system names: Nazis, fascists, you name it. And now we have the Czech deputy prime minister. He's calling out the panel for using the label fascist. And this is the Munich Security Conference that's happening right now. And he went on to say, we should try to learn to listen to each other and not label the ideological opponent as the public enemy. People should calm down. This is dividing society. But again, he pretty much just said it. This is what the deep state players, the Ds, do. They use these words to divide society. That's the whole point of it. And he's saying enough is enough. And the people, I think, are starting to agree that, yeah, enough is enough. Because this, if you look at the streets, if you look at the protests on the streets with the principals bringing the students out and the students saying fascism, Nazi, when you look at Antifa on the streets and they're out there, Nazi, fascism, these are the words that they use to divide the people. So what they do when they use these words, they put the MAGA Trump on one side and themselves on the other side. And I think it's becoming very, very clear to the people of this country and the people around the world. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that Trump now is putting a lot of pressure on Zelensky. I think Putin and Trump are putting a lot of pressure on Zelensky, and they're continually hitting the energy centers of Ukraine. So this way the people start to push back on Zelensky and actually force him to make a peace or a ceasefire deal with Putin. And Zelensky now says that if there is a 2-month ceasefire and the U.S. wants elections to be held in Ukraine, he is open to that, adding, but we can also give a ceasefire for Russians if they will do elections in Russia. Zelensky, don't worry about Russia. Worry about your country. And you know what? I think in the end, as they go through this cold winter, they might say, the people of the country might say to Zelensky, enough is enough. And you might hear people start to call out and say, we need to have elections here. But Trump, he is working with Zelensky, working with the deep state players. We could see every step of the way, they don't want to let Ukraine go because you have to remember it's a deep state layer. They need control over that, just like they needed control of Venezuela, control over Cuba, control over Iran. And what Trump is doing right now, he's dismantling everything the deep state players have had. And you have to remember, the money to fund a lot was coming out of Venezuela, oil trafficking, human trafficking, child trafficking, drug trafficking. To control the elections in many parts of the world, they used the machines that came out of Venezuela. Iran, they received the funding from Venezuela to what? To introduce terrorism across the globe. So this way the deep state players could use terrorism as a way to push a new type of war, which happened after 2001. Now we're in an information war. Remember, the war went from like World War I, World War II to from a physical war to a terrorist war to an information war. And how do you push information warfare? Usually with some type of censorship or cyber attack to bring down communications. And you can see that's where we're at right now. But every step of the way, Trump is trying to counter all of this. He put this out on Truth, and he's pointing to Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, which says, today, delegations from the United States, Ukraine, and Russia agreed to exchange 314 prisoners, the first such exchange in 5 months. This outcome was achieved from the peace talks that have been detailed and productive. While significant work remains, steps like this demonstrate that sustained diplomatic engagement is delivering tangible results in advancing efforts to end the war in Ukraine. Discussions will continue with additional progress anticipated in the coming weeks. We thank the United Arab Emirates for hosting these discussions and President DJT for his leadership in making this agreement possible. Absolutely. And Trump let everyone know that Putin, he's ready to make a deal. I think Trump and Putin, they're already on the same page. As we know, Russia's ready to make economic deals with the United States. I think they're already in agreement. They're just waiting for Ukraine and the deep state players to fold. And this is what Trump says. Trump says Zelensky's going to have to get moving. Russia wants to make a deal. And he's just letting you know that's exactly what is happening. Now, we could see that things are now building up around Iran. Yes, Trump is going to keep pushing for diplomatic negotiations with Iran, hoping that they'll make a deal with Trump. And you could see that Iran, every step of the way, if they do not, like Venezuela, What is Trump going to do? Well, I do believe they'll probably go in and maybe give the people the ability to take control of the country. Will he do regime change? No, he didn't do it in Venezuela. Will he allow the people to have regime change? Absolutely. And Trump, he put up two pictures, one of an aircraft carrier, the other one of a fighter jet, which is the F-22 Raptor fighter jet. You think he's trying to send a message to everyone that we're going to be using both of these in the coming days or weeks if the talks don't work? Most likely, yes. And you can see the people of Iran, they're continually rising up every step of the way. And the people, they want change. They've had enough. And once again, the deep state players, they're trying to hold on to Iran the best they possibly can. And what's very interesting is you can see the deep state players, they're panicking over everything. They're losing control. Trump is gaining the leverage. And every step of the way, what they're doing is now saying, listen, we're losing power all over the place. We're even losing power with the moderate Ds. And we need to really change things up because, once again, we're approaching the midterms. Midterms are very, very important. And if we don't have the people, we're not going to be able to cheat in the elections. At this point in time, they truly believe that they might have a shot at this. And this is why Hillary Clinton admits mass migration has been destabilizing to society. It went too far. It's been disruptive and destabilizing. Now, think about this. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew that Soros and the rest were all on board because this was part of the plan. If you read the Rifkin Project, their plan was to flood Europe with all of these Muslims to change and blend the country. They did it here in the United States. And basically, this was done on purpose. But now they realize the people aren't on board with this. So what are they doing? They're backtracking on all of this because, again, we're approaching the midterms. The people are not with them. And they're going to lie and deceive every step of the way. Cernovich says, Virginia is the Democratic model for 2028. Run on a moderate message, get elected, then go to town by enacting every far left wing wish list item. That is their strategy. They did it in Virginia. They're going to try to do it in the midterms. Andrew Colvett says Hillary Clinton all of a sudden telling Europeans that mass migration has gone too far. Barack Obama all of a sudden roasting Gavin Newsom and homeless 10 cities. Dem leaders are sending a signal to moderate the message so they can go full Virginia if they win in 2028. And that is absolutely true. They do this every single time. And when they realize in the late summer of 2026, when they don't have the people, they don't have the polls, they don't have anything, this is when they change tactics. Yes, are they preparing for all of this? Absolutely. But you could see at this point, everything that Trump is doing right now, he wants to show the people how they overthrew the United States government in 2020. And you could see with the investigation happening in Fulton County, Georgia, and the investigation that's going to be happening out in Arizona, the other Secretary of States, they're now panicking. If you look at Colorado, you could see Jenna Griswold. She is panicking right now. Eric Doherty put this out and said, Colorado's Democrat Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, just broke into a panic after realizing the Trump admin is surging investigations into election fraud. She should be next. Colorado has crooked voter fraud. They locked up Tina Peters for catching it. Absolutely. And yes, all of these people are going to be panicking because it's not just the election fraud, it's the Epstein information and how their money laundering system works, how they fund everything. And remember, going back in time, Doge has now been put into every single department. They've basically decentralized Doge. Doge, HHS says, today the HHS Doge team open sourced the largest Medicaid dataset in Department of History. This dataset contains aggregated provider-level claims, data for a specific billing code over time. For example, using this dataset, it would have been possible to easily detect the large-scale autism diagnosis fraud seen in Minnesota. So that's very interesting. Elon responds to this and says, Medicaid data has been open sourced, so the level of fraud is easily to identify. Doge is not a department, it's a state of mind. And yes, Doge is in every single agency. And they're going to set it up to make it easy for everyone to see how the money laundering scam works. Remember, what we saw in Minnesota is just the introduction. What we're seeing with Epstein and the players is the introduction so you can understand how the criminal syndicate actually runs. And you see it's getting worse and worse. And think about what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just announced. A massive cash reward for insiders who expose government fraud. Promises 10 to 30% cut to blow the whistle. So wait a minute. All those people on the local level, all those people like, I know how it's done. I had to keep my mouth shut, but now I'm going to get 10 to 30% a cut of this if I become a whistleblower and I show what's being done here. Think about what's going to happen next. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent put this out and said, President Trump has been clear that Americans have a right to know that their tax dollars are not being diverted to fund acts of global terror or to fund luxury cars for fraudsters. At Treasury, we'll follow the money. We did it with the mafia, we have done it with the cartels, and we're doing it with the Somalia fraudsters. We're going to offer whistleblower payments to anyone who wants to tell us the who, what, when, where, and how this fraud and money laundering has occurred. I'm going to say it's pretty much game over right now for the deep state players. Think about this for a second. And think about all these people that are trying to now act like, hey, you know what? I'm on Trump's side. Or I agree with Trump. Trump is letting you know, don't fall for it. Don't believe everything that they're saying. And this is what Trump said about Bill Maher. Sometimes in life, you waste time. TV host Bill Maher asked to have dinner with me through one of his friends, also a friend of mine. And I agreed. He came into the famed Oval Office much different than I thought he would be. He was extremely nervous, had zero confidence in himself, and to soothe his nerves, immediately within seconds, asked for a vodka tonic. He said to me, I've never felt like this before. I'm actually scared. In one respect, it was somewhat endearing. Anyway, we had a great dinner. It was quick and easy. And he seemed to be a nice guy. And for his first show after our dinner, he was very respectful about our meeting. But with everything I've done bringing our country back from oblivion, why wouldn't he be? But then I noticed his show started to devolve into the same old story. Very boring, anti-Trump, no mention of the perfect border, lowest crime in 125 years, the mass removal of stone-cold criminals, the 50,000 Dow and 7,000 S&P, both highest ever. Least number of murders since 1900 Venezuela. Midnight Hammer, Soleimani dead, al-Baghdadi dead, lowest inflation in years, 1.2% for the last 3 months, the rebuilding of our military, 8 war stoppages, and on and on and on. In any event, it was a total waste of time for me to have asked this jerk at the White House, and last night, after explaining what a disaster Canadian leaders are to deal with, how Canada has ripped us off, the United States for years on trade, but not anymore. I jokingly stated in a truth that the first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada and permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. Well, he went on and on about the hockey statement like, what kind of person would say such a foolish thing as this? As though I was being serious when I said it. Fortunately, his television ratings are so low that nobody will learn about his various fake news statements about me. He is no different than Kimmel, Fallon, or Colbert, but I must admit, slightly more talented. Anyway, Bill Maher is a highly overrated lightweight, and Republicans should stop using him to show how the left is coming over our way. Our base, the greatest of all time, laughs at our weakness when you do it. Maher asked me if he could come back to the White House again with his friend, also asked to come to the wonderful White House Christmas party, but he didn't. Regardless, I'd much rather spend my time making America great again than wasting it on him. Bill continues to suffer from a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome, and there is nothing that will ever be done to cure him of this very serious disease. Thank you for your attention to this minor matter, President DJT. And once again, he's letting everyone know, listen, just because they agree part of the time, don't believe these fake people. And we're seeing a lot of fake people across the board. As soon as they don't do what they want, or they say Trump should be doing this, they turn on him, which is absolutely ridiculous. Remember, this whole mission is not to serve the representative, to serve the senator, to serve these people. The entire mission is to take back the country. But people, they can't get out of their own way. They think it's all about them. No, it's about the country. You're elected to serve the people, not yourself. You're elected to do the job for the country. You're there to support the Constitution. That's why you're there. But most of these people, they're actually there to serve themselves. And these are the people that we need to get rid of. Because once again, these people are not for America. And slowly but surely, they show you who they truly are when they don't get what they want. You see, the Founding Fathers, going back in time, they wanted people to keep their job. They wanted their connection to the people to be there. And they wanted people to serve and represent those same people and then go back to their job. But today we've made people, career politicians that have no connection to the people. Plus, a lot of the people that are in Congress and many other places, they're installed in these positions. But you can see the deep state players, they're very, very slick in how they hide the rigging of the election. The Cato Institute put this out and said, audits in Utah, Idaho, Louisiana, Montana, Georgia found a few dozen possible non-citizen registrants out of millions and virtually no voting. Trump's claim that non-citizens are swinging elections is false, says Cato Institute. Stephen Richer. Cynical Publius says, the purpose of poorly updated voter rolls, voting without ID, universal mail-in ballots, ballot drop boxes, and ballot harvesting is to create an ostensibly legal system in which it is impossible to detect voter fraud. The system is by design so haphazard and erratic that it becomes impossible to tell if any single ballot was validly cast. I say again, the purpose is to make voter fraud detection impossible. They never tell you that part, and that's absolutely true. And you can see the deep state players, they're panicking right now because once again, we're starting off with Fulton County, red state, and then we're going to be moving into Arizona, most likely California, New York, Colorado, and many other states. Josh Barrett, Arizona, says, I could not be happier right now. DHS just entered Maricopa Election Center, DNI Gabbard. I was told it's not a raid, but they are there. So something is about to happen. And you can see with the SAVE Act, it looks like we might have the 50 votes because Senator Susan Collins, and Mike Lee put this out, has announced her support for the Save America Act, which means that we have 50 votes. J.D. Vance would be 51, and it means that the SAVE Act would pass. But we'll have to see how this plays out because what's happening right now, we are now in the middle of a filibuster. And pretty much we'll have to see how long this lasts. Maybe it won't last that long. But again, you can see the deep state players, the Ds, they're panicking right now because the last thing they want is the SAVE Act. Now, does this solve all problems this year? No. And this is why Trump has mentioned voter ID for all. We'll be getting to that in just a sec. But you have to remember, going all the way back to 1987, and Mays put this out, Mitch McConnell goes off about voter fraud and stolen elections. McConnell has advocated for voter ID laws his entire career, and yet now he's holding out on supporting the SAVE Act. Ask yourself a simple question. Why? Who controls him? That's what this all comes down to. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following: the Democrats refuse to vote for voter ID or citizenship. The reason is very simple. They want to continue to cheat in the elections. This was not what our founders desired. I have searched the depths of legal arguments not yet articulated or vetted on this subject, and will be presenting an irrefutable one in the very near future. There will be voter ID for midterm elections, whether approved by Congress or not. Also, the people of our country are insisting on citizenship and no mail-in ballots, with exceptions for military, disability, illness, or travel. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Then he put this out on Truth. We cannot let the Democrats get away with no voter ID any longer. These are horrible, disingenuous cheaters. They have all sorts of reasons why it shouldn't be passed, and then boldly laugh in the back rooms after the ridiculous presentations. If it weren't such a serious matter, it'd be considered a total joke. No voter ID ID is even crazier and more ridiculous than men playing in women's sports, open borders, or transgender for everyone. Republicans must put at the top of every speech it is a can't miss for re-election in the midterms and beyond. Even Democrat voters agree, 85%, that there should be voter ID. It's only the political leaders, crooked losers like Schumer and Jeffries, that have no shame and explain why it's racist and every other thing that they can think of. This is an issue that must be fought. It must be fought now. If we can't get it through Congress, there are legal reasons why this scam is not permitted. I'll be presenting them shortly in the form of an executive order. I hope the Supreme Court realizes, as they painstakingly review the very simple topic of country-saving tariffs, those same tariffs that have been used by other countries against the USA to drain it of its treasure and security for many years, and all sorts of other things that are making our country rich, powerful, and safe again, that these corrupt and deranged Democrats, if they ever gain power, will not only be adding 2 states to our roster of 50 with all the baggage there too, but will also pack the courts with a total of 21 Supreme Court justices, their dream, which they will submit easily and rapidly when they immediately move to terminate the filibuster, probably in their first week or sooner. Our country will never be the same if they allow these demented and evil people to knowingly and happily destroy it. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President, Save America, President DJT. And that's absolutely true. This is exactly what they're going to do. All I got to look at Virginia right now. And they will also move on impeaching the President of the United States. If they gain power in the midterms, that's exactly what they're going to do. Now, Trump, he always gives these people the chance to do the right thing. He always says, listen, pass the SAVE Act. Let's have voter ID. Let's make voting right again. Let's make it so there's no fraud. Please do the right thing. Now, we know most of these people are not going to do the right thing. So when Trump says, listen, everyone's going to have voter ID, he's not kidding. Joe Lane says, I've been saying it for a while now. Trump doesn't need Congress to do anything to protect the midterms. It's a national security issue. Quit worrying about the midterms. Quit worrying about passing the SAVE Act. When Trump exposes the evidence of the conspiracy to overthrow the United States government, people have everything that they need. Now, again, the SAVE Act is very, very important. You want it in law. Yes, national security threat, very important. But moving forward, you want this to be law. And you want, most likely, these people to do the right thing. Again, this is all playing out so people see what's going on. And again, yes, he could just say, it's a national security threat. Everyone must use voter ID. But without understanding the basis of it, it doesn't make any sense. So, yes, why are we introducing the SAVE Act? Why does everyone need voter ID? Why does everyone have to register as a citizen? Why do we need one-day voting? Why shouldn't we use mail-in? All of this has to be done so that people understand. When people see the fraud then in Fulton County, in Arizona, in California, in Colorado, then it makes a lot more sense. So Trump gave people the SAVE Act. Now he's going to back it up of why we need it and why he has the ability to say everyone must use it. You see, for the counterinsurgency to work, you need the people behind you. You just can't do it if you don't have the majority with you. I mean, do the polls show that, yes, people want voter ID? Yes, they do. Do they want Trump to force it? Not yet. But what is the election rigging in Fulton County, Georgia going to do? What is the election rigging in Arizona going to do? It's going to give him that ability. Joe Lane once again says, national security, that's the keystone. Throughout Trump's presidency, he's been using the National Security Declaration for lots of things. Why? The founding fathers gave the president plenary authority over things involving national security. Trump, like all strong presidents before him, is attempting to use his Article 2 powers to implement a policy agenda that voters approved in 2024 election, and that he has determined is essential to the protection of the country and its citizens. This is especially true in the area of national security policy, an area where the Constitution vests the president with the most awesome, and in some cases, almost unfettered power. That is what our founders intended. Alexander Hamilton in the Federalist Papers wrote that energy in the executive is a leading character in the definition of good government. It is essential to the protection of the community against foreign attacks. It is not less essential to the steady administration of the laws, to the protection of property against those irregular and high-handed combinations which sometimes interrupt the ordinary course of justice, to the security of liberty against the enterprise and assaults of ambition, of faction, and of anarchy. Trump doesn't need permission from Congress to fix our entire election system. It's a national security issue, and that is absolutely true. Let's go back to post 964. This is March 27, 2018. I'm going to go down a little bit in the post. Constitutional crisis. Twitter coming soon, Google coming soon, Amazon coming soon, Microsoft coming soon, plus 12 more. Current censorship, all related to push for power midterms. That's interesting. Does that mean we're going to see communication blackouts somehow, some way? Maybe. Last stand. Election fraud cases open, DOJ, many. That's interesting because we just started in Fulton County. Moving on to Arizona. Follow the family. Follow resignations, business and government via Epstein. Biden, China, very important marker. China was involved in overthrowing the United States government. Who made it public? Who really made it public? Who is making it all public? Let's see. Trump? Absolutely. We are the gatekeepers of all. By all, we mean all information. Uranium 1 to Canada, to the EU, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Syria, Pakistan, Iran next. Where are we going next? Oh, that's right, Iran. $700 billion military this year. Why is the military so important? National security, national security. These people are stupid. Art of the deal. Tidal wave coming. Buckle up. Absolutely. And remember, Article 2, vesting clause, gives the president the executive power. Lincoln used these same powers to save the Union without waiting for a vote. If the election system is broken or treasonous, Trump has the authority to use the military to secure it. Isn't that interesting? And the other thing that's very interesting is that Kristi Noem, she is going to be monitoring the elections for any vulnerabilities. Any country trying to get involved, any country trying to cyber attack, trying to get into the election system somehow, some way. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, remember, as we move forward, Q is always pointed to an executive order. And I think it's going to start to make sense now, because think about all the players that are involved in Epstein. Think about all the players that are involved in the money laundering part of the system. Think about all the people that are involved in overthrowing the United States government. And you have to remember, this executive order is from Barack Obama. Post 2207. It says, reminder, Hussein Executive Order. Executive Order 13526, Section 1.7. Classification prohibitions and limitations. In no case shall information be classified, continue to be maintained as classified, or fail to be classified in order to conceal violations of law, inefficiency, or administrative error. Prevent embarrassment to a person, organization, or agency. Restrain competition, or prevent or delay the release of information that does not require protection in the interest of what? National security. Sleep no more. The American people and others around the world are awakening. Panic. Game over. So when all this comes out, Trump is going to use Barack Obama's executive order against him, Hillary Clinton, Brennan, and everybody else. Think about this for a second. And all the puppet masters behind the scenes. It's game over for all of them. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.